Today we're going to learn how to make an interactive map. The first thing that we need to do is we need to install a tool that will allow us to scrape data off of a website. In other words, to be able to take that information, convert it into a usable format, and then be able to upload it to the software that we're using to create our map. The data scraping tool that we're going to be using is called Kimono. You can find the link on the Moodle page for 284MC. If you go to kimonolabs.com, there are a number of different options. Firstly, if you are using Chrome as your browser and you go to Kimono Labs, after you have signed up and are logged in, you will find that it gives you the option to click to install. Do this and a dialog box opens asking you if you would like to add the extension. Press Add Extension and a small K will appear in the top right hand corner. You can see it over here. This means that the extension is correctly installed in your Chrome browser. We'll come back to Kimono in a little while. For those of you who are using a different browser, for example Safari, the process is slightly different. So in the same way, go to Kimono Labs, make sure that you sign in. If you click on Help Center and you then browse down and go to Install the Kimono Bookmarklet, it will then show you this particular button which says Kimonify. You need to click and drag that button up to your bookmark toolbar in the top and let go. It will then create a button that you can then refer to when you need to kimonify something. In other words, when you need to scrape the data that's available. It's now ready to use and available to you for future use. All right, I'm going to continue in Chrome just because it's the easier option. And the next thing that I need to do is I need to find some data that I'm going to use. So I'm going to go into Google and I'm going to search in this case for crime statistics by country. When you're looking for data, it's important to have some kind of geographical reference to work from. It's also important that it's in a format that Kimono or another data scraping tool can use. The nice thing about this particular option is that it's very clear and very simple and therefore easy for Kimono to use. So at this point we want to start data scraping. Click on the K and you will see a little toolbar appear at the top of your screen. This will also happen if you click on Kimonify in your Safari browser or your Firefox browser. So it works in exactly the same way. Kimono is now active as an extension within your browser, and it will allow you to collect certain data. So we're going to ignore the headings for each column, and we're going to go straight to the data beneath it. In this case, I'm going to click on the rank, and I'm going to see immediately that everything is selected, and next to the number 2 there is an X and a tick, and next to the number 3 there's an X and a tick. Click on the tick next to number 2 and it will select everything in that column. You will also notice up at the top the small yellow circle which refers to the property, in this case the rank, has now changed from a 0 to 117, and that tells you how many items are in that particular column. You can now rename that particular property to rank so that we know what that column is all about, and you can now create another property that will then refer to country, and we'll do exactly the same thing. So we click on Venezuela, we then click on the tick next to South Sudan. We see immediately that the number 117 appears, which means there's a matching number of countries to the number of ranks that we've already got. We're going to rename our property number 2 to country, and we're going to then create similar sections for our crime index and for our safety index. Once we've done that, we're now ready to change this into a format that can be used in our mapping program. So we're going to click on Done on the right hand side, and immediately it's going to give you the option to name your API. I'm just going to name it Crime stats. Then I'm going to click Create API, and it's going to take a little bit of time because what's happening at the moment is that Kimono is scraping or extracting all of that data from the website Numbeo. Now you'll see it has completed its process, and I can now click on this live link over here, which is going to open up the data that I have just scraped. And you can see it's in a really nice format. There we have our rank, there we have our country, our crime index, and our safety index. It has also created additional information, and we'll get rid of that in a moment. Now, this is all very well, but you can't take this data in this current form and import it into your mapping tool. So you need to download it in a very particular format. Make sure that CSV is selected as it is in this particular example, and then click Download. If you're using Chrome, in the bottom left-hand corner, you should see your information has been downloaded as a file. If you click on that, it's going to open Microsoft Excel. And it's going to show you what you've actually scraped from the website. So we have rank, we have country, we have crime index, we have safety index, and we have those two additional columns which actually we don't need. So in this case, we're going to select both of them. We're going to right click and we're going to delete them. Oops, I've actually selected the wrong ones. There we go. Correct ones, and delete them. And we now have only those parts that we're going to use. So rank, country, crime index, and safety index. I'm now going to save that so that I remember what it is that I'm dealing with. I'm just going to call it crime stats, and I'm going to save it on my desktop so that I know where I can find it. Don't worry if it gives you this warning message, because this is a CSV file. Just click continue. It will still read the information. Right, so we have a nice clean Excel spreadsheet. We have all of the information that we need, and we can now start the mapping process. You will need to have signed up to CartoDB, which is the mapping program. I'm going to just log in. Okay, it will show me some of the maps that I've created. What I now need to do is link the data set that I've just created, that Excel spreadsheet that we've been looking at. I need to link that into CartoDB in order to provide it with the option to create a map. I'm going to click over here where it says Data Sets, and I'm going to select the option that says New Data Set. Right, I can now find my file on my computer, and you'll remember that I saved it on my desktop, so it was called crimestats.csv. I'm going to open it, and I'm going to click on Connect Dataset. It's going to take a little bit of time because what's happening at the moment is that CartoDB is analyzing that Excel spreadsheet and identifying what information is there. One of the things it's actually doing is it's looking at the column that says country, and it's determining what that is, and therefore that it can map it. Now you'll see that it has created its own spreadsheet within CartoDB, and it gives you the option of either a data view, which we're currently in, or a map view. So I'm going to click on map view, and you're going to see immediately that it creates a world map, and that world map, I can close this, that world map has different countries in different colors. So what I want to now do is ensure that my user is able to understand what exactly they're looking at. On the right hand side, you'll see a toolbar that's available to you. I'm going to click on that to open it, and it's going to show me the map layer wizard. Now there are different options of different types of maps. The type of map that we're creating in this case is called a choropleth map. A choropleth map refers to a map that shows the intensity or high level versus low level of a particular number. So let's say you're looking at population density and you're looking at different countries around the world and how many people live in them. Those that have more people living in them will be a darker color, and those that have fewer people living in them will be a lighter color. So I'm going to click on chloropleth and I'm immediately going to see that my map changes. This is because it's now differentiating between high values and low values. Now it's not clear at this point exactly what it is that I'm looking at, but I do have some options available to me. So I can decide which of those columns I would like to be visualized on the map. In this case, it is the crime index, but I may wish to change it to something like the rank, and you can see then there's a sudden change, all right, in terms of it. I can also change the color grading that is being used. So if, for example, I would like a pink purple map, I can choose that option. I could potentially also choose a blue map, but I'm going to stick with the original because I do like that differentiation between the beige and the red. Okay, so now we have a fair idea of what we're dealing with. We understand that there is a differentiation between low levels and high levels. In this case, it's dealing with the rank, so which are the safest and which are the least safe countries in the world in terms of crime. I'm then going to click on Info window. Now this is where I start to add some functionality to my map. In other words, I would like my user to be able to do something. There are two options. I can either decide that when my user clicks on a particular country, they will get certain information, or I can decide that when my user moves their mouse over a particular country, they will get specific information. In my case, I would like it to be that when they move their mouse over the country, they get information. So I'm going to click on hover. And I have 4 different options there that relate to the 4 different columns of information that are available. I'm going to decide that I would like all of those columns to be available to my user when they scroll over it. You can modify and adapt this depending on what you're interested in. So for example, you may not want the rank to be there, or you may not want the country name to be there, and you can play around with that. But in my case, I'd like everything. Now watch what happens when I move my mouse over a country. All of the information is displayed as a little pop-up available to the user, and they can interact and move and see the difference between different countries and how they compare to each other. And suddenly there's another layer of information there. So in addition to the color, which tells me how safe or unsafe a particular country is, I can also get the specific details per country. Let's have a look at the UK. Here we go. Crime index 43.13. Rank in the global stakes 62nd. Very, very interesting. All right, now I want to allow my user also to have additional information. So I want to tell them what exactly I'm measuring over here because it's not very clear. So I'm going to click on the legend and I'm going to decide to enter a title for this. I should click show, by the way, just to make sure that it is clear. And I'm going to say crime levels per country. Right. You'll notice immediately, as soon as I press enter, the title appears in the legend. Now I can do the same thing with those individual values. So I can decide that this is going to be low crime, and that is going to be high crime, which might have more meaning to my audience than those specific individual values that I have there. And so now I know the darker the color, the higher the crime level. If I want specifics about it, I can hover over any country that I want. All right. Now there are additional areas of functionality. For example, I can add a particular feature. I can draw on my map by clicking on that. I'm not going to do that at this particular point in time. I can also decide to zoom in or to zoom out. I can decide where I'm going to start. So let's say I want to start over Europe and not over the USA, where it generally tends to default. I can move my map around and I can decide what I'm going to do. I can also rename my map, so I can just call it Crime Statistics Around the World and click Save. Now that's going to rename it.